Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Friday edition of the Cameron Parker Show. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. It's a special edition Cameron Parker Show because anytime we get these two gents together, it makes for a pretty exciting episode. It is Mile High Huddle's very own Carl Dumler and Nick Kendell, two of the best in the biz and two of the good friends of mine. How you guys doing on this? Well, I don't know if it's cold over where you guys are, but it's been pretty up and down over here in the Colorado area.
I'm doing wonderful. It's cold here too, but we got the Christmas lights up today, so everything's twinkling around town, and just excited that we're finally to some December football.
Yeah, it's cold here. I'm sitting here in the bedroom just freezing. So, I mean, got my blanket on. I'm already done with winter. College football as like a regular Saturday tradition is over. I know we got the Army-Navy game tomorrow, but, it's pretty bleak from here until March as far as sports goes. I mean, we still got the NFL and the Broncos making a playoff push. So I guess I can't complain too much, but I'm already done with winter. Not even Christmas yet. I'm tired of it.
Well, I mean, even from a football side of things, I mean, at least with college football goes, I mean, it's, if you look at it, this is ultimately kind of like the college football version of March Madness without the tournament, and at least with the not counting the mini tournament of the four teams, I should say, but it's kind of like college football's own March Madness because you have 50 or so bowls of the unique variety, with the sponsors and what have you. But it's also kind of that time where, like you guys, you kind of get in tuned a little bit. And you guys have been in tune, obviously, for quite some time with, prospects and that sort of thing. And then it kind of goes back probably even to last year. Because, I mean, usually you guys know when you watch tape of some guy that is coming out, let's just say from last year, you start getting a little bit more in tune to players that are actually coming into the draft this year. So I think that's kind of a fascinating area that you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that I think is very fascinating, and me, I'm always in tune to always talk some baseball. I mean, you guys have probably found that out by now. But I've also been a huge fan, in essence, of Paul Goldschmidt. And hearing the move lately, at least in the last few days, actually it was yesterday when the news broke that he was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. Both of you guys have been pretty diehard St. Louis Cardinals fans for quite some time, correct?
Yeah, that was probably my first sports love. I know I love Broncos and Hawkeyes were even a little bit later, but I grew up, and the very first sports memory I have is the 1998 home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. And I went as Mark McGwire for Halloween that year, and that was my first love. Went to a lot of baseball games. My family's from that area of Missouri originally, so yeah, big Cardinal fan. Been to the World Series 3 times. Go to a game. Try to go to a game every year. Haven't been the past couple years. A little busier and whatnot. But yeah, definitely a big Cardinal fan.
My love actually, it started with my best friend. His family have been Cardinal fans. I don't know how many generations, but it goes pretty far back, and they have season tickets. And with me being connected to their family, they always invited me to come with them. And even though it was a 10-hour drive, I don't know how many times I went to Cardinals games and just fell in love with them. It's just fun to go watch them play. And it's I'm not much for watching baseball on TV, but for watching it live, man, it is so much fun. And so we always made it a tradition, and my friend and I still try to carry out the tradition. We try to go to the Royals Cardinals game every year. And we have a big tailgating party with his family, and so, yeah, they've been part of my life, probably since middle school.
Yeah, it's I think it's so funny because I like to have kind of like just those fascinating, fun conversations with my dad every now and then. As far as the favorite logos, the top 5 logos that you would rank, and it is so interesting because me and my dad always come to the consensus that it's either the Green Bay Packers for the NFL or the St. Louis Cardinals. And I mean, just the rich history that team has, it's pretty much next to none. I mean, obviously Boston and New York and the, Dodgers and such. Just a rich history with St. Louis. But they did make also a pretty historic move that they're well known for, because as a Rockies fan, they acquired Matt Holliday. And now, granted, Matt Holliday came from the Oakland Athletics at the time, but they made a move and they acquired Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, and what is your guys' initial take on the trade of Paul Goldschmidt to the St. Louis Cardinals?
Well, it's hard to not. Go ahead, Carl.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm very excited. I mean, this is a guy that's finished second and third in MVP voting for the NL, 2 or 3 different times already in his short career, and Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger Award winner. I mean, this guy does it all, and that's exciting to bring to the Cardinals. And it's been, I guess, a frustrating time here these last few years. They've gone on their longest dry spell of missing the playoffs, and they needed to make a splash. There's some really good teams in the NL Central. It's ridiculous how good the NL Central is compared to the rest of the baseball. And so to go get a guy like this that kind of, at least for me as a fan, says, hey, we're going to make sure to get this right. So like I said, I'm just pretty darn excited about this.
Yeah, it's hard not to be excited to get one of the best right-handed bats in baseball. I know it's first base, which is typically a position where you don't get as much value as getting a great hitter at a different position, but he's a great athlete. He runs the bases well. I mean, putting Colton Wong and Paul Goldschmidt over on the right side of the field arguably gives the Cardinals one of the best that first base, second base combinations in the entire Major League Baseball as far as defense goes. And you're getting a consistent 5 WAR player over there. I mean, I have his stats in front of me right now on Fangraphs. 7.2 WAR in 2015, 5 in 2016, 5.2 in 2017, and 5.1 last year, despite starting off really slow. He was hot down the stretch, and he absolutely kills the ball at Wrigley Field and at Miller Park. So getting that bat to bat either second or third is huge for the Cardinals, and I feel like maybe my head's in the clouds a little bit, but Paul Goldschmidt, watching that press conference today, they acquired him Wednesday, but his press conference was today, seemed like a great guy. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals have a good team this year and make some noise that he's a guy that wants to resign. And given his athleticism and that he's playing first base, I see him holding his value pretty well. It's not like football where once you turn 30, your value declines rapidly. You got a little bit longer career, longer being effective at playing baseball. So I think he just turned 21. So great get. Best hitter they've had since Pujols, something they've been missing since Pujols walked, and really makes them a strong contender in the NL Central. I'd still have them behind the Brewers and the Cubs for now, but I don't think the Cardinals are done yet. They got a big TV deal. They got a lot of money. I mean, they're still in the talks for Harper. There's a couple of trade candidates with the Indians that they've been in talks with, some relievers. So it's an interesting team, and they got some good young players and the most pitching depth in the NL Central, which I think is something that people look at the lineups and starting rotation, but you need 7 solid starters in today's league. You're going to get injuries and whatnot, and the Cardinals got pitching depth, so that's great.
One of I think the big pluses of the St. Louis Cardinals is, if you don't get Bryce Harper, you don't get Bryce Harper. But the fact of the matter is, there is a legitimate argument for acquiring Paul Goldschmidt and making the statement that he is the move of the offseason. There's a lot of clout name recognition wise for Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, and assuming maybe the Dodgers make a play for Corey Kluber or Trevor Bauer, that kind of thing. But ultimately, the move of the offseason, you would ultimately have to go with Paul Goldschmidt, and maybe it's a little bit of the Rockies fan in me too, and seeing him so much in the NL West, but between Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, they have been nothing but consistent the 6-7 years when they've been in the National League. And so, having a guy that is a bona fide MVP candidate and goes about playing baseball exactly the right way, and he fits basically what St. Louis really needs to a T: base running, hitting, and like you said, Nick, in being that first baseman, then they can replace, in essence, of what they had with Matt Adams and the revolving door that they had when Pujols left. I mean, they finally have that big bat that they can not just potentially have him be their first baseman for just 2019, but because of Paul Goldschmidt, the guy, I don't think it's far off for him to at least be so sold on the idea that he wants to be with St. Louis at least for the long haul, at least for 4 or 5 years. And so I think that it is definitely conceivable that if he is sold on the idea right away, that even before the regular season starts, I think that it would be possible if St. Louis even signs him to a long-term extension.
And they got the cash to do it because they just got a big TV deal that's been bursting them. And honestly, the Cardinals are moving up there as far as some of the highest payroll teams or revenue teams in all of baseball. So, you know, they got Goldschmidt now. They got Carpenter with a pretty decent deal. They still got money to go after Harper. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. They're going for it this year, and they got the minor league depth and the money that they can do it. So it's an exciting time, and I'm really excited to knock the Cubs down. That hasn't been very fun over the past few years because gosh darn it, I hate them.
I also just want to say I thought the Cardinals got a steal with the trade.
Yes.
I didn't think they really gave up a ton considering the kind of player that they got back of an MVP caliber player and a couple minor league players that they're expected to be pretty good, but I don't think they're ever going to turn into stars by any means. And then a draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that compared to an MVP caliber player that could be with you for the next 4, 5, 6 years kind of thing? So like I said, I was just all excited all the way around, and I just can't wait to see what else they're going to do. I think they're kind of the conference today, if anybody didn't watch it, they were kind of saying, oh, we might go get another utility player and things like that. And I'm sitting here going, I think you're just trying to maybe be a little sneaky here on what you're trying to do, because I think they might make another splash play. They know the fans in St. Louis, they expect greatness. I mean, that's what that franchise has been. Other than the Yankees, it's pretty much been the Cardinals as that number 2 franchise when it comes to success in baseball. And so it really would not shock me to see them go and go get a big star like Bryce Harper.
I mean, so that was kind of my interesting thinking, because I mean, now you look at St. Louis, they're pretty dominated with the right-handed pitching or right-handed bats now. And it would make a lot of sense if they did go after Harper, because you need that left-handed bat in the lineup. Dexter Fowler has been so unpredictable ever since he came from St. Louis from Chicago. And he strikes out a ton. His play discipline's terrible. I mean, the only thing that he really presents really as an asset is defense in the outfield. And also, I mean, he can't even stay healthy to save his life. And so I just think that it would be great to have the production from Dexter Fowler take a nice leap in 2019. But if you have the opportunity to at least sign Bryce Harper, and I think ultimately if the St. Louis Cardinals do gauge that, there's no possible way that, you sign into that, 9-10 year deal of like $300 million, that particular contract. But I mean, if you can get him to sign like to what Josh Donaldson did in Atlanta, just like a 1 year, $25, $26, $27 million contract to where they can just play with each other for 1 year, I would be down for that if I was St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Harper's going to get a big deal, but as far as payroll inflation, it's not like the Cardinals haven't paid these guys big money before. I mean, McGuire, I saw a tweet the other day, McGuire's contract would have been close to, I think it was $33 million per year with today's payroll inflation, and Pulos's was about 30, and that was before that was arbitration. So he probably would have gotten more in the open market, should have gotten more in the open market. And another one was Matt Holliday's deal was pretty big as well. So they got the cash to do it. We'll see what they do. I would like to get another left-handed bat. Granted, Matt Carpenter and Colton Wong, 2 solid left-handed bats. If you can get another one in the outfield, that'd be great. But you know what? If you got hitters that can hit, they can hit. That's the way it is. And I'm not upset with Ozuna, Tyler O'Neill, and Harrison Bader dominating this outfield. I really do like Harrison Bader too. That dude is just got that big, gorgeous hair running back there and the high energy and stealing home plate, playing great defense. I mean, really, really a fun young player. I think he's only like 23, 24 years old. So.
Yeah, and it's an exciting time just because just as baseball in general, a lot of players change teams, and so there's just a lot of uncertainty. But speaking of uncertainty, you want to talk about a wave of seasons for the Denver Broncos. It's been so up and down. I mean, to go from where they were at the point in the season to where they are now, I don't think I would have told you that the team would be in playoff contention. I think that's probably been the most intense part of this season, is just seeing how, and maybe it's just how the Denver Broncos won against Pittsburgh and Los Angeles that sort of did it for me. And that will do it for you, I guess. I mean, when you beat 2 of the top AFC teams, it's going to switch your season around. And I think that it's amazing. I was talking to Sarah and Cody about it, and it's amazing how quickly a favorable schedule can turn in the last month of a season when you win those 2 games against Los Angeles and Pittsburgh, because now really the only particular game on your radar that's of note and that's a legitimate big matchup is the one in Week 17 when they play Los Angeles again.
1-0, buddy. 1 game at a time.
Yeah,
so
I know.
The Browns worry me a little bit, even though that game's at home. But that's the other one that kind of gives me a little concern. No, I saw a stat earlier today, and it was teams that are 4-6 or worse after their first 10 games. Only 7 out of 259 teams that started out that way have made the playoffs. And so to see them go from 3-6 to obviously now 6-6 with a really good opportunity this Sunday to win a game here on the road, it's great to see the Broncos where they are. Problem is they still don't control their own destiny.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's the hard part to watch. Last night, obviously cheering for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who decided just to completely give up on the season. And oh my gosh, that was so embarrassing. And I was one of those people that had Derrick Henry on my bench. I cried a little last night. It was a very, very sad moment. But beyond that, it just they're going to need a little bit of help, and they're going to have to keep winning. And I like the mentality that they're taking of just 1 game at a time and look ahead to their one opponent and go from there. If they win this week, go on. And if nothing else, they're kind of doing a little bit of everything that they wanted to be able to do this year. I mean, you got to look at the positives of everything. It's not only that they're winning now and in a playoff hunt, but they're getting their young guys lots of experience at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of some of us were kind of going, well, if the season's lost, stick in all of your young guys. If it's still going good, keep your veterans in there. Well, we're getting a little bit of both, and that's a great thing for the Broncos moving forward.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, 1 game at a time. I'm a little bit worried about the 49ers' ability to stop the run and the Broncos' struggles passing the football last week. Case Keenum hasn't been the best thrower of the football on the road, and now losing Emmanuel Sanders, yikes. But as long as they keep protecting the football, defense plays bend, don't break, and, winning the turnover battle, they got a chance to win every game. So, well, I'm just trying to take it 1 game at a time. They printed off T-shirts. Their slogan's been 1-0, so keep it up. Glad to be 500, and I keep hearing that it's pretty much playoffs or bust for Vance Joseph. But if this team finishes 6-1 down the stretch or something and misses the playoffs, I feel like it would be a pretty big stretch to fire that guy, because I feel like the team is starting to believe in him and the guys around him. But John Harbaugh, if he's let go, then that might be too tempting for Elway. but we'll see. That's a pretty good coach and somebody that he has familiarity with, and this is a pretty good roster. I mean, it's young. It definitely has some holes in it. We'll be talking about that a lot on Carl and I's podcast going forward, especially after the season's over. But yeah, hard to not enjoy this team. The offensive line's playing better. They got an identity on offense for the first time since 2014, I'd say. Peyton Manning's last year, there was really not much of an identity on offense besides throwing the ball to the other team and hoping the defense can bail you out. Sorry to sully his name, but that wasn't let's be honest, 2015 wasn't a good year for Peyton.
No.
But yeah, no, it's a good team. I'm just along for the ride at this point. Obviously still got to analyze it and everything like that, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that these young guys can continue to step up and improve and just keep surprising everyone, because, even for being a draft person like myself, this team and these rookies have surprised the heck out of me.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. Obviously, I was more describing it just as a fan perspective, but that's the appropriate way to look at it. They are taking it one game at a time, and I think ultimately, if you look at it, there's a lot of factors certainly that are playing into it, and in large part turnovers and and the revamped offensive line. I think that's probably one of the more underrated aspects as to why that they've been winning those games. And obviously, Carl and Nick, you touched a little bit on it. It is the rookies, because we sort of get into kind of like that great, that kind of interesting area where you want your most impactful guys to play in, should I say, playoff games before the real playoff games. And right now, because of the hands that they've been dealt recently with the injuries to Chris Harris and Max Garcia and Matt Paradis and Ron O'Leary and now Emmanuel Sanders, just a revolving door constantly of injuries. They've been able to throw these guys in here that have been, reliable depth pieces and also rookies. And I think that's been maybe, if not the most impressive aspect as far as this season goes, is that, we say all the time with rookies that they're going to hit that rookie wall eventually. Well, it doesn't seem to be affecting any of these guys. One player in particular is Phillip Lindsay. It just seems like nothing is phasing this kid week in and week out. You can probably label off a bunch of guys that are probably as dynamic as him, but take him away from this Broncos team is like almost taking a part of the Denver Broncos offensive soul, because that's just how impactful he's been. And if you were to ask me once he was signed as an undrafted free agent, what type of role or impact would he have been on this football team, I would not have told you that he would be the heartbeat of the offense.
He's surprised everybody every single step of his career, it seems like. So it'd be silly to doubt him now, and he keeps proving everyone wrong. I'll be the first to admit, I didn't even give him much of a sniff as far as a draft prospect, just because, well, you only have so many hours to check everybody out, and I mainly focus on the trenches. But a 5'8" kid, not putting up phenomenal numbers, and I'm out in Iowa, so I don't see as much Pac-12 football as I'd like. It's better than Big 12 football, but still, it's not the SEC, ACC, or Big 12 or Big 10. Sorry, guys. But yeah, he's been killing it. I would love to see him getting more involved in the pass game going forward, but he is. I would say he's in the top 3 of the most important players on this team going forward. I would argue that the team probably would be. As hard as I am on Case Keenum, going from Case Keenum to Kevin Hogan would completely neuter this offense. Yeah, just because, even though Case Keenum's a journeyman, spot starting, or not a spot starting, but, not a franchise quarterback, we'll put it that way. From him to Kevin Hogan would be a huge drop off. And then you have Von Miller, which I know you got some depth around him, but Von Miller makes this defense and makes this team go. But then after that, it's Lindsay. He is the identity, the heart of this offense, and he's the guy that they're going to keep riding, and hopefully all the way into the playoffs. And then, if they get in the playoffs, who cares from that point? I mean, obviously I want to go all the way to the Super Bowl, but they would have a lot against them given their injuries and their lack of secondary talent and passing game. But you never know. Just get in and anything can happen.
I will say, you talked about that rookie wall, and none of these guys seem to have hit it yet. The nice thing for the Broncos was a lot of these guys at the start of the season were not starters. And so they were more rotation pieces. And so they weren't getting all those reps where you're getting into, like, most college seasons obviously ended this past weekend. And so they'd be used to, hey, we're done with football. Where those first 4 games, they didn't really play a ton. You think about Bradley Chubb was the only real true starter week 1. I guess Royce Freeman, but now he's been moved to backup for another rookie. But obviously Cortland Sutton, Yadam. I'm trying to think who else we got. We got who are some of the other rookies that are starting right now? Deshaun Hamilton now starting this week.
Josie Jewell.
Josie Jewell. There you go. That's the one I was trying to think of. I can't believe I forgot the Iowa boy.
Dare you?
I know. But again, all these guys, they had other starters in front of them, and they had quality veterans that know how to play the game that were teaching them how to play the game. And you can see that impact coming in. I know a lot of the wide receivers have talked about Demaryius Thomas and the work that he did and just teaching them route running and how to be a professional in the NFL. Emmanuel Sanders being a great example for a lot of those guys. Josie Jewell, I mean, he's had Todd Davis, he had Brandon Marshall. And it's just been nice to have those veterans that were there before them. And now you're seeing this youth movement come in and say, all right, we can play this game. And they've just been stepping up. These guys have gone down with injury of Marshall, Sanders, DT getting traded, and boom, it's still being very, very successful. We'll see how the whole Sanders injury affects things. And I still think the Chris Harris injury, it was easier last week playing against a first-time starter. And I don't think it's going to really show up this week. I mean, we're going against not a great quarterback. And so it might be the Cleveland game or that LA game that could really show up as being that impact injury. But still, I mean, it's great to see such a great rookie class stepping up and being something for the Broncos. It's been a while since we've had rookies doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think looking up to this or looking at the upcoming San Francisco 49ers game, it is interesting because, I mean, they don't really maybe have the best quarterback, but as far as the weapons go, I mean, they're pretty, I would say, underappreciated maybe. I mean, Nick, being the Iowa Hawkeye fan, that George Kittle from the Big Ten days, I mean, he might be the most underappreciated tight end in the NFL right now. And just with what he is capable of doing, and I don't think that not a lot of people certainly have noticed him as often. But I mean, you got a guy like George Kittle, Dante Pettis, Marquise Goodwin, if he can be activated this week. But I mean, they do have kind of those very underrated or underappreciated weapons because of the fact that they've been on kind of the dire need of a quarterback because of the injury of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have a quarterback and you don't have pass rushers, you're not going to win a lot of football games. I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. The Broncos got the pass rushers. I mean, they got a quarterback steering the ship right now, but I mean, it's been shown over the last decade that if you have those two things and a coach with a solid offensive scheme to boot, you're going to make noise in the NFL pretty consistently. So that's one reason I feel like, the Chiefs are got players left and right, and everyone's going on and on about this offense, and their back seven is definitely not great. But up front, they got 3 guys who can get after the quarterback in Dee Ford, who's having one of the best years of his career. Luckily, I think he hasn't been paid yet, so they're going to have to pay him soon. Chris Jones, who I absolutely adore as a football player, and Justin Houston, who isn't the same level player he was when he was challenging Von Miller and Khalil Mack, but still a really good pass rusher. And then you pair that with you got a guy like Mahomes and the weapons they have and Andy Reid, you got a hell of a juggernaut. So, I mean, that's the way you do it. And obviously offensive line's important. Guys who can match up against wide receivers are important. Playmakers are important, et cetera, et cetera. But it comes down to quarterbacks and pass rushers first and foremost. And that seems like the way a lot of these teams are winning right now.
So what is it about George Kittle that has just resurrected his career? Not resurrected, but just more jump-started his career to where he is now? Because I don't remember ever seeing this particular production at any point in his Iowa career.
Well, Iowa likes to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. The main year that he was used in the offense, CJ Beathard, the backup quarterback of the 49ers right now, played through a hernia most of the season, and the offense was absolutely neutered with the lack of weapons around him. As much as I love the tight end position, wide receivers are far and away number one, and if you don't have wide receivers, it's going to limit pretty much everybody else around you, and they just didn't have guys around him to help him, and he was such a good run blocker that they didn't utilize him so much as a pass-catching threat. I mean, they still used him as a pass-catching threat when they could, but they couldn't funnel a passing game through him because he needed to be in there, and Iowa was a run-first team. So that was just the year after the Hawkeyes went undefeated and got killed in undefeated in the regular season, then got killed in the Rose Bowl. The offense just was not very good, and Kittle went under the radar, not very productive. Did have some injuries while at Iowa as well, but he tested well, smart kid. Really just, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but kicks butt. I was going to say kick ass, but just whoops the guys across from him and got that attitude. And I feel like, a lot of Hawkeyes fell that season that shouldn't have. I mean, in the same vein, you had 5th rounder Desmond King, who's been one of the best cornerbacks in football. I don't care if he can't run a 40-yard dash at a 4.4 speed. If the dude's got ball skills and is physical and, always around the ball making plays and just got that instinct, the kid can play. So we're seeing that. But yeah, love Kittle's game. And honestly, it's crazy to say that he might even not be the best, not even a top 2 tight end for the Hawkeye team over the past 3 seasons.
I mean, when you got guys like Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson down there, who both, at least we know Noah Fant's going to declare, but I mean, the expectation is that TJ Hawkinson is going to declare. And but yeah, I mean, they've clearly labeled themselves as tight end U for a reason.
Yeah, they took it from Miami, who was tight end U before that. So yeah, it's tight ends are good. Hopefully the Broncos will bring back Jeff Hireman next season. He was playing better, and maybe because he was injured and a little bit of erratic play, they can get him on a little bit better deal because he was starting to flash and show, low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 ability. So yeah, that wouldn't be bad. But yeah, back to Kittle. The Broncos got a pretty much, if you stop Kittle, they got some passing weapons, but I don't trust Mullins to do it. So if you can slow down Kittle, jam him at the line, which, you got Cravens there. It'll be interesting to watch Cravens against him. I think you can do pretty well to slow down this 49ers offense that's more run-centric and neutered with the loss of Burita being out for the season.
What about you, Carl? What are some of the keys as far as you look at the Denver Broncos with the San Francisco 49ers matchup?
I look at the 49ers, like Nick had said earlier, they don't have much of a pass rush. And secondary-wise, they're not that great. They're going to have 2 backup safeties playing in this game. Sherman's not anywhere near what he used to be. They got a Colorado boy, right, on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And he's okay. It's nothing special or anything like that. But I think it's going to be a matter of getting this passing game going a little bit more. And you got 2 rookies now having to start at the wide receiver position, and they're going to have to really step up their game. Sanders was that one consistent piece that you could really rely on to be the chain mover, to get open, to make the big catch, to make the tough catch in traffic. I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, his hands are just outstanding. And so just going to have to see how some of these younger guys step up. We didn't really have much production from the tight end last week. Maybe that Hireman injury could end up being one of the more devastating ones than people really realize, because he was having that kind of bounce back season. But again, I mean, it's just a matter of got to get some of the passing game going, just take some pressure off the run game and get a little bit more confidence with some of these guys moving forward. I mean, I still think you can beat the 49ers because they're not going to produce much on offense, even if you don't get much going in the passing game. But it's just a matter of you're building for other games. I'm not saying you overlook this one, but it's still one that I think it doesn't have to be perfect and you can still go win. And so I'd say that's one of the main things I'm really looking for into this one.
Negative 20 turnover differential for the 49ers.
It's not going to win you games. That is not going to win you ball games. Meanwhile, on the Broncos side of things, I mean, their turnover differential, was pretty low. I mean, it was like in the 20s, and then with this recent winning streak, this 4-game winning streak, they skyrocketed, I believe, into the top 10 with turnover differential. I mean, it's amazing. And yeah, I never really paid attention much to it to begin with the NFL and stats and what have you. But I never really paid attention much to it until I started really realizing that the turnovers and winning the turnover battle and turnover differential, it wins you ball games.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you can, like Case Keenum, if you can actually hold on to the ball, whether it might look ugly at times, but the fact is that, you don't commit a turnover, or should I say commit a turnover. And then if you can force multiple turnovers on the other side of the ball, you will win quite a lot of football games. And so it might not have looked pretty in some of those games, but if you can maintain certainly where Case Keenum was with his passing attempts, which was, I believe, like in the 20s.
12 for 21?
Yeah, I mean, if you can keep him within the 20s and at least rush between Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay between, 10 to 20 times, I mean, at least split the carries as much as they can. And then I think that for me, the interesting thing, and they did it with some experimentation, I believe, once with Phillip Lindsay, where they used him out of the Wildcat. I think it'll be interesting with the loss of Emmanuel Sanders if this is the week where we see Lindsay utilized more in the passing game, to at least counteract and the loss of Emmanuel Sanders. Because if there was probably one thing that Phillip Lindsay, at least coming into the league, that everybody knew of, and that was that he's a pretty dynamic receiver when it came out of the ball, when he had the ball in his hands out of the backfield as a receiver. So I think, it'll be interesting now that he's clearly accomplished the feat of running in between the tackles and, proven to be a tough runner, if they just go more to his strong suit now that Emmanuel Sanders is gone.
Yeah, I feel like Lindsay they just really haven't utilized him much in the pass game yet, which they should. But the guy that I think is in line for more targets there is Booker. Now, Booker does not probably get the credit he should as a receiver. He's been making plays all season in that regard. I mean, that Broncos' first touchdown was set up by a big play by Booker. He actually had 2 catches on that drive. One of them was that big 20-plus yard reception. And he's also had a few third down catches, over the middle. So getting Booker more involved in the pass game, I feel like is something that would be wise for Musgrave to do. And it seems like Keenum likes to target him. And Carl, I'll open it up to you here. I'm kind of taking over the host there for a second. Sorry, Cam. But Hamilton is somebody also that everybody needs to be paying more attention to, that obviously is going to get much more involvement in the pass game now that Sanders is down. I remember there was a quote last week where they said, he was in there the most snaps and he didn't get a single reception. I don't know if he even got a single target. He went to the sideline and he's like, man, am I ever going to get the damn ball? So I don't blame him, but
I just did a big article on him, a big film article looking back on this past game and just this past season and what Hamilton's doing and what he can bring to the Broncos this season. That big 20-plus yard play for Booker that you were talking about, Hamilton was wide open deep down the field. It was an easy touchdown. He actually beat a double team. There was the cornerback, the slot corner, and the safety were supposed to help cover him, and he went right by both of them. I mean, he shocked both of them with his speed and had about 2 or 3 steps on all of them, but unfortunately, Case Keenum didn't quite see him in time. That's kind of besides the point. He's a guy, he can get open in a hurry. I think he's going to become best friends with Case Keenum with his ability to win in the short area quickness. There's some plays that I watched where have you ever watched those basketball videos where a guy just jukes a guy to the point where he just falls down and embarrasses himself?
Yeah.
That's what he did to a few defenders. I mean, he just has incredible footwork. He has an amazing ability just to set up defenders to look silly. Now, I'm not saying that he's the greatest wide receiver of all time or anything like that, but I think he's going to show some people that not that the Sanders loss is not going to hurt, but maybe it won't hurt as bad as some people might think it will. And I'm here to tell some of you fantasy owners out there, I mean, if you lost Sanders, go get Hamilton. I think he's in line to get maybe 7 to 10 targets in a game. He's going to be taking Sanders' spot, and that's where Case Keenum, that's where his eyes like to go first. So it wouldn't shock me that he's going to continue to do that with Hamilton.
You know, I think, and I actually wrote a little bit, because I wrote my Hamilton piece over at Predominantly Orange, and you guys can go check Carl's film piece down over at Mile High Huddle, and obviously, you know, Nick and Carl's podcast, Building the Broncos. You know, I wrote mine today, and you know, I think that, and maybe it's over the course of the career or what have you with the Broncos, or even in this particular stretch, you know, Courtland Sutton's going to get all the notoriety because of, you know, his big playability, and, you know, because he's the new wave wide receiver. He's 6'4", he's big, he has that massive catch radius. He can run after the catch if he can, you know, get the slant route figured out. And you and I the three of us were talking a bit about it a few days ago. But I feel like, at least in this day and age with the NFL and with Adam Thielen and guys like Antonio Brown and just proving their worth to not just be available in the slot or even on the outside, but I feel like over the course of these last handful of games, and even maybe into the course of a career, Hamilton might be the most valuable wide receiver between the two.
I don't know about that. I mean, you got Sutton. He's going to have to be the guy that draws the defenses and whatnot, but we'll see down the stretch, you know. Who knows? But the Broncos definitely need one of these young guys. I mean, don't sleep on Tim Patrick either. He's got a very unique skill set with his size and speed. I'm not sure if he really needs to work on his route nuance. He's more of a 9 receiver right now, you know, running those 9 routes, you know, drawing the defense with the 4 verts concept. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see these guys develop, and hopefully this offense can keep it up. But there's no way to look around, or no way to get around it. They're going to be limited by the loss of Sanders, because he brought a lot to this team. I mean, right now, you know, talking Carl's the wide receiver guy, but Sutton right now, I mean, what's he doing underneath over the middle? I mean, how many slants has he dropped? It's been more than DT has, you know, the whole season over the last 3 games. And you know, not to take away from Sutton, but you know, he's got issues there. Right now he's just running it and beating press man up over the top, which, you know, don't get me wrong, that's a trump card for him. He can do that, but he's not a complete receiver. And when you got Sanders could win over the middle. He could win underneath. He could win deep. He could win outside the hash marks. He could win when he's lined up in slot. So they're just really going to miss him.
The other part that I'd add about Sanders, he did a great job when Case Keenum would scramble.
Yes.
That was a very underrated part of his game. He understood, keep moving, go with your quarterback. There's a lot of plays where I saw Sutton go, oh, he's scrambling, I'm kind of just jogging across the field, nothing too crazy. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that he's lazy or anything like that. It's just when you're not used to that, when you're not keyed into, okay, keep the play going, keep trying to find a way to get open, it just doesn't quite become natural until you practice it a little bit more. And so that's going to be a real big part, I think, for especially Keenum when he scrambles, that he's just going to have to really work with these young guys and say, hey, keep moving, do something for me.
To expand upon that, Sanders also has a knack for finding that soft spot and sitting in his own, which I have not seen from Sutton at all. The game hasn't just made sense to him that way yet. You know, playing at SMU, I don't really blame him. But, you know, Sanders, when Keenum's getting out of the pocket, but you got to find those soft spots in the zone. You know, sometimes you have to call off those routes, because if you keep running it, you're going to run right into another zone. So that's something right. Sanders did very well over the middle, you know, outside the hash marks for Keenum, and that none of these other guys have shown that they can do that.
Right. The other guys, it's a lot of, I like to call it understanding when not to go 100%. There are times when, especially you're moving from one zone to the other, don't keep running 100%. Slow down to keep that window open just a little bit longer for your quarterback. And so there's some nuances in speed and what you're trying to do as a receiver that just rookies don't understand.
Or fans on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The DT, I'm not even going to get into it. Never mind.
You should get into it. No, you should get into it.
Okay.
This is the platform. I'm irritated about this still. I'm triggered.
So, Bronco fans, I know some people out there still today, the Chiefs-Broncos game, where
the first one.
Yes, the very first one. DT down the sideline looking like, oh man, it could have been a touchdown, should have been a touchdown. Demaryius Thomas was not at fault at all on that play. 0%. Okay? There is a way that he ran that route that he was called to run it. There's a way that a receiver tries to kind of slow play a cornerback and then kick it up into high gear and catch him off guard, that they're not ready for that top speed.
If he runs full speed, he's going to run right into that cover 2 safety.
Exactly. And so it's a matter of he's trying to work to make sure he gets into that zone at full speed at the right time. Case Keenum just overthrew him. Case Keenum didn't give him a chance to make a play. DT did not run a bad route on that play. That was actually a great route that got him open.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bronco fans, stop blaming DT for that.
Silly.
I mean, and Case Keenum himself said it was him and that he's been losing sleep over it. I mean, when it happened, I mean, you don't have to look that further than, to Case Keenum, who had actually admitted. Now, granted, Case Keenum, I mean, he's going to be honest with you. I mean, that's one of the things that you appreciate about Case Keenum, is he to be honest with you. I just am. So we were talking about, that nice little nuance of Emmanuel Sanders and such. Wouldn't that necessarily fall into Hamilton's category a little bit, because of the fact that he is much more mature of a route runner than Courtland Sutton at this point, and because he's well more rounded and understanding the concepts and as far as all the different route trees is concerned, wouldn't that necessarily fall into Deshaun Hamilton's court?
Yes and no. Let me explain that. Yes, he is better than Sutton, and so there will be a lot of other plays that he could make that Sutton cannot make, but there's still things that you're going to miss with Sanders, like the understanding of when to sit in a zone. You're going to miss the connection that Sanders and Keenum had. They just understood a little bit more. Peyton Manning would talk about this, if he could just kind of give a look to a receiver, and they'd practice so much that they would just understand, okay, this look means go run this route and do it at this yardage marker and run at this kind of speed. And there's just a lot of nuances that even though Hamilton is advanced for a rookie, he's still not a veteran. He's still not getting all those little nuances. And I need to see how he does also when Keenum scrambles, because that's when Keenum's actually at his best, is when he scrambles. When everything's chaotic, it seems like that's when he plays his best. Well, does Hamilton keep running? Does Hamilton find those open spots? I mean, there's just a lot of questions with Hamilton. I do expect him to have some pretty good success over these next 4 weeks, but it's just a matter of Sanders could make that one play that just really completely changed the game around. Can Hamilton be that guy too? I just don't see it quite yet, but maybe over the next few games, maybe by the time we get to the Chargers game, he'll be a little bit further along in that development.
In one of those game-changing aspects is speed. And Deshaun Hamilton doesn't exactly have that Emmanuel Sanders speed.
He's not there quite that. I don't know. I mean, Sanders isn't exactly the most lightning quick, fast guy in the world either. I mean, he just kind of wins a lot with his. It is deceptive, but I'd also say Hamilton's speed's a little bit deceptive too. He does a pretty good job setting up with 1 foot and then just planting and going. And I've watched him blow by a lot of guys. I mean, they can catch up to him, but it's a matter of he can get by guys in a hurry.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of a lot. Do you remember Deontay Carew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that name mean anything? From Rutgers? Never did anything in the NFL. But
right.
Yeah, never did anything in the NFL.
He scored a touchdown the other day for Miami.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Man, I remember our friend Scott Porter, shout out to him, but he was a huge Deontay Carew fan, and that's just kind of who I'm a little bit worried about Hamilton in that regard. So we'll see. Good route runner, showed some nuance, but some limitations, but we will see. But you ready to move on to these college football playoffs?
I am very excited. So, what in essence is your guys' game? I mean, is it the Alabama and the Oklahoma matchup where the fan debate of who's better, Kyler Murray or Tua Tonsils? That's just what I call him, Tua Tonsils, because I can't pronounce his last name. You guys just, I mean, is that the game to where just everybody can just put to bed, who's better? Is it Kyler Murray or is it Tua?
Well, I don't think you can put it to bed,
especially with that Oklahoma defense. I mean,
you can call it that.
Yeah, if Tua doesn't light up that Oklahoma defense, that would be more concerning than, say, if Kyler doesn't light up the Alabama defense.
Yeah,
I mean that it's just you're playing two extremes. You're playing one of the worst defenses in college football compared to one of the best in college football. And so to me, if Kyler Murray can light up the Alabama defense, that's going to say a lot about his ability. If Tua can't light up the Oklahoma defense, that's going to say a lot about some of his struggles.
I'm pulling up the Oklahoma schedule right now, just some of the point totals they gave up this season. They gave up 21 points, only winning in overtime at home to Army. They gave up 33 points to Baylor. They gave up 45 on a loss to Texas. They gave up 46 to Texas Tech. They gave up 47 to Oklahoma State. They gave up 40 to Kansas. They gave up 56 to West Virginia. So, like, I mean, I understand that the Big 12 is a non-defensive conference, but man, God, way to just, like, steer into the skid there. This is just something else.
I mean, if you want offense, I mean, you might as well just start watching every single player in the Big 12. And you'll get that every once in a while, I guess, in the Pac-12. But, I mean, it's nowhere near the offensive production that you get in the Big 12. I mean, it's like an arena football league.
Yeah. And I will say Kyler Murray is the type of quarterback that Nick Saban and his defenses has struggled against in the past.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't shock me actually to see this be a big-time shootout between these two teams.
I'm just very interested to see the Alabama defensive line and how they match up with the Oklahoma offensive line, because obviously you got stars on that Alabama defensive line. Quinnen Williams, top 3 talent in the upcoming NFL draft. Raekwon Davis, first-round pick. Anfernee Jennings. They also got Mack Wilson up front there. Like a Christian Milner. So a lot of talent on that defensive front for Alabama. But that Oklahoma offensive line is nothing to scoff at either. Cody Ford, a lot of people are talking about him. He's the right tackle for Oklahoma. A lot of people think he might be the first interior offensive lineman drafted in this draft. They'll probably move him inside, but he just mauls dudes in the run game. And then they got Bobby Evans at left tackle, and they got some good interior guys as well. And then I really do like these playmakers for Oklahoma. You got Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who might be one of the fastest players in college football. There's going to be some questions about his ability in the NFL because he is, 5'10" and only like 160 pounds, which is, I mean, that's teeny tiny.
Yeah.
But he's got real speed, and for the Big 12, that works. And then CeeDee Lamb, who's just a sophomore, but he's one of the best wide receivers in the entire country for Oklahoma. So that's Trey Sermon can pound the ball between the tackles as well at running back. And then obviously Kyler Murray, for as good as Baker Mayfield was statistically for that offense last year, Kyler Murray put up better numbers this year. Now, granted, he kind of had to because that Oklahoma defense was absolutely horrible, but he's got a rocket of an arm. There's a reason he's a baseball player. That dude can sling it, and he's such a good athlete. He doesn't have the long speed that you see with a guy like Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick or anybody like that, but he's like a point guard. Like when you see like John Wall. John Wall's a great example because it's his ability to change directions and his quickness at the quarterback position is something I can't think of any quarterback that's ever played that has his quickness and his ability to start and stop and go that Kyler Murray has.
So what you're saying is you're basically looking at Phillip Lindsay at quarterback. Just
with a rocket arm.
But with a rocket arm. I mean, just with the way that he's explosive with the ball in his hands. I mean, and I just think that, that's in essence where it sort of gets me that, I mean, he's just so dynamic of a player that, that's the type of guy that can change a game really all by himself. And it's amazing. Wasn't he with wasn't he with Kevin Sumlin down
Texas
in Texas A&M? I mean, So it's not like, this is maybe a first rodeo with him going up against Alabama. I mean, he's been up against Alabama before. So, I mean, there's got to be at least some familiarity. Now, granted, he hasn't probably gone up against this particular type of defense before.
No.
But, I mean, obviously Alabama, as we all know, rotates, first-round talents, like a piece of Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we also got to talk a little bit about the Alabama offense. I don't even want to waste too much time talking about the Oklahoma defense. They do got the nose tackle that I like, named Neville from Canada, but he's a late. We're talking about day 3 kind of player. I don't want to waste valuable time to do that. But Alabama offense, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, obviously great talent. It's kind of funky to watch those left-handed quarterbacks, but he can sling that ball. Yeah. And hopefully he can be healthy by the time they play. And I know he didn't have a great SEC championship game. Might have cost him the Heisman, but still phenomenal talent. I don't think he's an Andrew Luck, John Elway kind of quarterback prospect, which I feel like the media was trying to make him to be. But he's definitely in the conversation for the first overall pick next season, not the 2019 draft, but 2020. But I want to talk about some of these weapons on this Alabama offense as well. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is an absolute freak, a wide receiver. I think he would be picked before any single wide receiver in this upcoming class. Henry Ruggs III is an absolute just menace as well. Another sophomore who's got incredible speed. They got a true freshman by the name of Waddle, who has got a little bit more size, not as explosive or sudden, a little bit taller, more slender than those other two, but also a weapon. And then Irv Smith, the tight end, who is getting more involved than I can remember any Alabama tight end being involved in a long time. Kerr said that O.J. Howard couldn't be in this type of offense, but what can you do? But I really like Irv Smith a lot as well, and I think he's going to be early to mid second round pick when he comes out. And then you got the Alabama offensive line. I mean, you got Ross Pearson-Bacher inside, a guy from Iowa, spurned Iowa, should have been in Iowa. Don't want to, screw him. But anyway, Lester Cotton at right guard is really powerful and a guy that I wouldn't be surprised the team takes, late day 2, day 3 and ends up an NFL starter. And then obviously Jonah Williams, who most people have as the best offensive lineman in this upcoming class. I don't think he's a true franchise left tackle. He doesn't have overwhelming tools, but he's so balanced and consistent. And I think he's a guy who could excel at any 5 of the offensive line spots. So Alabama's got a good offense too.
You forgot the running backs.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Damian Harris.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
He was a guy that, we were clamoring about, thinking that he's going to go to the NFL draft last year and talking about him being a top 3 running back, and then he returned. And he might not even be the best running back on their team this year.
He might not even be the second best running back on their team.
That could be true. So, that's how crazy Alabama is. They're always loaded every year, both sides of the ball. It's ridiculous what they get.
And they do a great job developing talent. Mm-hmm. It's not just the recruiting, it's the development.
Right. So then who would you guys end up having as the upper hand then, and in a particular game like this? Because, we obviously have the Notre Dame and Clemson game that is flying a little bit under the radar, but obviously everybody will be talking about the Alabama and Oklahoma game. But who do you guys have as the winners of both games, and then obviously the winners of the national championship if you had to pick right now?
You got to go Alabama on this one. Just they're the more balanced team on both sides of the ball. Yeah. I think, honestly, I might give a little bit of an edge to Oklahoma on offense because of Kyler Murray. I think he's got a little bit more of a unique skill set compared to Tua, and he's used to playing for college. Yes, that's what I mean. And I just think for especially a game like this where he can go and just improvise on certain plays that no other quarterback in college football can do. I just think that he gets a little bit of an advantage, but Tua's just got the talent around him that makes you have to just go with them, at least in this game. They're undefeated. They're number 1 in the nation for a reason. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that Tua hasn't played in the fourth quarter until maybe the last couple games here of the season. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder if they do get into a close game against. I mean, I guess they did have that last week against Georgia, but Tua didn't play in that one either. So in the second half, so I don't know what he would do in some of those close games. The Clemson Notre Dame game, I'm one. I don't think Notre Dame deserved to get in.
You'd rather have Ohio State?
I would.
Okay. Or are you one of those UCF freaks?
No, I'm not
Okay.
UCF. I really do think if Ohio State and Notre Dame actually played, I do think Ohio State would win that game at this point. I just and Clemson, I mean, they have, again, just another team that's talented on both sides of the ball like crazy. And I'm excited to continue to watch that freshman quarterback. Just if you want to talk about a guy that has Andrew Luck hype potential, that's your guy. I mean, Lawrence, he's got it all. I think there's some other guys. I'm excited to see what JT Daniels can now do with having Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator in USC.
I don't think he's got the arm. I know you're talking about. I watched him this year. I don't think he's got the baseline tools.
You just wait. That's my boy.
Okay.
My boy Blue.
Okay, we'll see. I was like, oh, this is it. Ugh. It's kind of like me trying to watch Daniel Jones at Duke. I'm like, is this really it? So, sorry.
Well,
I think the big thing for Alabama versus Oklahoma, forget about the players. You give Nick Saban a month to prepare. Advantage Nick Saban. I mean, it's sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of the point that really does get forgotten in the whole bowl season. Because, I mean, you're basically giving a month to study Kyler Murray versus like a week.
Or you get a month to figure out how Kansas put up nearly 50 points against that defense.
Right.
So I do want to talk a little bit about the Notre Dame Clemson game. I know we spent a while and we're already running a little bit long here, but Clemson, you're talking about Trevor Lawrence. That dude, I mean, there's a reason he was one of the most hyped freshman recruit quarterbacks since, gosh, I can't remember. It's been a long time. But that dude, when he throws the football, I swear to God, I hear harps playing as the ball travels through the air.
It's
pretty. It is beautiful. But it doesn't just stop there. Clemson doesn't have an amazing offensive line, but they got weapons. Obviously everybody loves Hunter Renfrow, even though he might be an undrafted free agent type. He'll end up on the Patriots, of course, and be a great player because that's how it goes. But I absolutely love Travis Etienne, their running back. He looks like kind of a Philip Lindsay guy back there, except he's much bigger. He just absolutely beat the heck out of Pittsburgh. He beat up everybody all year. And then they also have a wide receiver. They got a few good wide receivers. I'm pretty, Darion Kendrick, Justin Ross are some freshmen that are talented of theirs. I like Amari Rodgers as well, but T. Higgins, he is something. He's 6'5", a little bit slender, but by God, watching him, if it just doesn't look like AJ Green at Georgia Incarnate. I mean, it's so effortless too when he moves. He can get downfield. He goes up there and get contested catches. He pulls down that ball. The cornerbacks are draped around him, and then they just kind of like slide off of him as he runs it down the field for a touchdown. So T. Higgins he is something. Let me click on him real quick just to see his height. He's got to be 6'4", 210 pounds. This guy is AJ Green. And he has a great running back as well. And then you got this Clemson defensive line. You got Clelin Ferrell, Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, and Austin Bryant, and another phenomenal freshman. Honest to God, Clemson might have the two best freshmen in the country. They got Trevor Lawrence, obviously, and then they got an edge rusher named Xavier Thomas, who is unbelievable. This kid is unbelievable talent. He's impossible to miss. I mean, he's a freshman, and they let him wear number 3. So watch for him as well. Yeah, he is crazy good. I'm not as big of a fan of that Clemson back 7. I do like Trey Lamar. He's a junior. We'll see if he comes out. Kendall Joseph, solid player. And I feel like Trayvon Mullen, I think Matt Miller had him in his top 10 in his last mock draft or something. And he's long, but I don't know. He just plays soft. They play him a lot of off coverage and stuff, but a guy that is as long as he is and not a super twitch dude, he just plays soft. And then Notre Dame, you can't. I agree with Carl. If neutral site, Ohio State, I think beats Notre Dame, but Ohio State has a bad loss against Purdue, and Notre Dame's undefeated. So that's just the way it is. Notre Dame, they've been playing decent on offense. Ian Book has this offense moving along pretty well. They got a tight end that's been up and down in his career, but I like a lot in Elise Mack. solid, but it's really this Notre Dame defense that has been really good. And they got, Jerry Tillery, who's got really heavy hands, resets the line of scrimmage really well. Tavon Coney is a really good player. Julian Love. And also I'm a fan of, as a safety of theirs, his name is escaping me right now, but he's a transfer from Navy who's played pretty well also. And Brian Kelly's, there's some questions about how good of a guy he is or if people enjoy him or not, but he's got this team playing pretty well. And Dexter Williams is pretty well slept on at running back for them as well. So I think this will be a closer game than people think, because I think the ACC is absolutely dreadful this year outside of Clemson. I mean, we saw how close Clemson was against South Carolina. Deebo Samuel had like 3 touchdowns and 200 yards against this Clemson team. So it'll be fun, but in the end, T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, and Trevor Lawrence, not Dexter Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence on offense with that defensive line is just going to be too much for him. And in the end, though, I see Alabama beating Clemson in the championship.
I think with the Ohio State thing, the thing that was, at least for me, and one of the reasons why they did not put him in, it was obviously, I think, the losses of Purdue, but it's just the amount of close games that they had with sort of meaningless teams. I mean, they went on that 50-burger with Maryland and probably should have lost that game on the 2-point conversion. We all know about the Nebraska game, but I mean, we obviously know that they're probably better than the record indicated, but they were still, not the best record-wise. And so they played down to their competition there, and obviously against Purdue. And Rondale Moore lit everybody on the media circus with his performance against Ohio State. So I think for me, it was just more about obviously the loss of Purdue, but just how many close and maybe less meaningful games that they had with those opponents.
Yeah. Let me specify. I do think they got the 4 right teams in. I just think they're not the 4 best teams in college football.
Well, yeah. I mean, Georgia should probably be in if that was the case.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, Ohio State's pretty damn good too. And the Big Ten is good. They just need to make it 8 teams and we can just cut out the BS. But in the end, I mean, we're talking about who deserved to get in the top 4. If Alabama and Clemson go in and it's straight chalk, then it didn't really matter who was 3 and 4, right? Or 5 and 6.
Well, yeah, and if it's Alabama and Clemson again, we get it for 3 straight years. It's pretty cool.
That wasn't last year. Last year was Alabama, Georgia.
You're right. But it would be like kind of what is it? 2 of the last 3 years then, or 3 of the
4.
3 of the last 4, yeah. Yep. To be kind of like the Cavaliers and Golden State when LeBron was with Cleveland. So there might be some parity in college football when it comes to the college football play. But guys, thank you very much for your guys' time. It was kind of nice to do this a little bit. It's been a while having you guys on the Cameron Parker Show. It's been a while even doing a Cameron Parker Show with the work that I've been doing over at Lockdown Broncos. And obviously you guys do tremendous work over at the Building the Broncos podcast. And it's been a joy being on your guys' podcast. And as always, it's a pleasure having you guys on mine.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We're always up for talking football.
Oh yeah. And hey, we dabble a little bit in far as some gold with Paul Goldschmidt and the St. Louis Cardinals. So it was kind of nice to maybe deviate a little bit from building the Broncos and building the Cardinals.
I think that's one of those trades that both the Rockies and Cardinals can cheer.
Yeah, that we might have another winning team next year, and maybe the Rockies will go to the playoffs, and St. Louis will still sit at home.
Yeah, and thank you for babysitting Nolan for now until he eventually makes his way over to St. Louis. We really appreciate it. You did that with Larry Walker, you did that with Matt Holliday, and then Nolan, he's just gonna love St. Louis.
I swear, if he goes to St. Louis and he signs the $300 million deal, I'm gonna be a little bit perturbed.
You just might as well come on over. I mean, I feel like I'm slowly working you over to the bright side as far as college football goes, and maybe we can get you some birds on the bat as well.
Well, I mean, it's slow, but I still think Adrian Martinez is still a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. But that's just me.
And show over.
Right. I had to put that in there.
I thought you were going to say Nate Stanley, and I'm like, you know what? I can get behind that. But you caught me off guard. You legitimately caught me off guard.
Don't worry. I do those on some of our test runs before I do the Locked Up Broncos. So Cody's he's an Oregon Ducks fan, and so every now and again for our test, I would always throw in, Adrian Martinez is a better quarterback than Justin Herbert. So I would always kind of throw those subtle things in there. So I kind of threw in a subtle thing there for Adrian Martinez is better than Trevor Lawrence. And personally, I do not think Trevor Lawrence is worse than Adrian Martinez. I think Trevor Lawrence is just spectacular.
And Haskins is quarterback 1 in the upcoming draft. Probably.
I don't know. I kind
of just to read it off. I got his stats in front of me. His last 3 games against at Maryland, 24 for 39, 464 yards and 6 touchdowns. Versus Michigan, 28 for 38, 430 yards and 6 touchdowns. And against Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship, 34 for 41, 495 yards and 5 touchdowns. Classic box score scouting. That's all you need to know, folks. There's nothing else to it. Turn off the tape.
But seriously, though, it's been pretty impressive seeing the growth of Haskins the last handful of weeks. And if he continues that, obviously,
he'll be a top 5 pick if he comes out.
He will undoubtedly be the number 1 quarterback in the upcoming draft. I mean, I can say what I want about Kyler Murray. That he might be my QB1 if he decides to declare, which is not looking good. But he's Haskins, as I called. What did I say in our message feed? Gaskins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's undoubtedly going to be the top quarterback.
What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, it's got to be Haskins.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the boy. He's my man.
Wait, whoa. He's your boy. I thought JT Daniels was your boy.
Well, that's in a couple years.
Oh man, I
can't wait that long.
You get to stick your flag in JT Daniels, and Cam gets Adrian Martinez, and I get Trevor Lawrence. Let's wrap it up, boys. I already won. It's over.
Can I change mine then to Justin Fields?
Yeah, that's a little bit more intriguing. That's one to watch. Although he doesn't get a play because he's behind Fromm.
I know.
He just needs to transfer to like Penn State or something.
Real quick, what is your guys' take on Fromm?
He's a solid quarterback. He'd be a really good fit in a West Coast offense, but I think he's limited as a passer vertically, doesn't have great tools. Smart kid. Really reminds me of Kirk Cousins.
He's got the baseball arm, and I'm sure with Patty Mahomes has been doing with the baseball arm that he has. My guess is there could be a lot of scouts that could drool over that because of he has that baseball background.
I just don't see the arm talent with him in his ability to push it. I think Justin Fields has got much more of a live arm, but Fromm can fit it into windows that are pretty darn special underneath. So get him in that, West Coast offense, the classic Bill Walsh offense, and he can be very effective.
Is he a long-term starter at quarterback, or is he a fluctuating starter to backup?
Yet to be determined on my end.
He's got another year here to really show what he can do and show some growth in his game and understanding of football.
It doesn't hurt when his best game was against Alabama. That makes everybody think a little bit more rosy on him.
Right.
Yeah,
so I don't know. He's definitely not my favorite quarterback, but yeah, if you get him with the right coach, I think he could show definitely some good promise.
Well, one thing is for sure, Jake Fromm is from State Farm. No, I'm kidding. Jake Fromm, State Farm. I mean,
boo.
But clearly, though, Jake Fromm is way better than Aaron Murray. I mean, Aaron Murray wore 11 with Georgia, and Jake Fromm is way better than Aaron Murray.
Yeah,
and Aaron Murray was like a backup in the NFL for what, like 3-4 years, and then he kind of died. I mean, just as far as where he was. No, you know what I mean.
I
know. But all right, guys, thanks for stopping by and being on the Cannon Parker Show podcast. And if you guys are listening, please check out the Building the Broncos podcast with Nicholas Kendell. You guys can follow at Nick Kendell MHH, and at Carl, you can follow at Carl Dumler MHH. And you guys, you can follow me. I mean, you guys can click the follow button if you like. I mean, it doesn't hurt to click the follow button for me, but you can follow me at Cameron Parker PO. So thank you guys for tuning in, and this has been another edition of the Cameron Parker Show podcast.